All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our webinar on online identity and data privacy. I see a lot of familiar names out there and some names I haven't seen for a while. So this must be a topic of great interest, which is excellent. We always want to make sure that what we're delivering is what people want on those things. And maybe sometimes that's a little bit of what you don't want to hear, but need to hear. This may be one of those kind of presentations. So, this might be uh, hang on to your hats, edge of your seat kind of thing. There's a little bit of good news on the front with some of this, but by and large, the picture is pretty grim. So we're going to talk about some of the things that can happen today and in the world, and a few things you can do about it, and that's it. So that's me. I'm Jeremy Cherney. I'm the founder of Tobin Solutions, and I'm happy to be here with you today to share this information, uh, share some ideas, and really it's we want you guys to be curious about this. You get bombarded with this kind of information all the time. A lot of it's confusing. It changes frequently. But ultimately today we want you to discover where you might have some risks and some things you might be able to do about it. And we have the chat open. So if there's anything you want to ask questions along the way, we'll do our best to answer those questions. Or we may wait to the end where there'll be time as well. We also have Amanda on as my co-pilot here, and she may jump in with some comments or support. So let's jump in. So I want to kind of talk about security versus privacy, because this gets, there's a little bit of it in the Venn diagram. There's some overlap, but there are some distinct differences. And really today we want to focus on those differences. But in order to understand what the differences are, we got to understand really what the basics of security are here. So I just want to get us grounded in that. So when we talk about a security incident, we talk about any breach of your CIA triad here. Any breach of confidentiality, a breach of integrity, or a breach of availability. That's traditionally when we think about cybersecurity, those are the things we're looking at. Any of those kinds of things that we're trying to protect you from and recover from. So in the world of cybersecurity, we're talking about protecting your computer systems, your networks, protecting your data from theft, damage, unauthorized access. By the way, some of these slides are pretty dense because we really want you to have the information. So in the end, there'll be an opportunity to get to fill out a survey. And if you fill out the survey, you'll get a copy of the slide deck. And so, maybe you don't have to take as many notes and you can just be here in the conversation as well. But really in cybersecurity, that's what we're looking at. The primary goal is to prevent that unauthorized access, maintain the integrity, and ensure the availability of your systems. And who's responsible for that is you, the governments, who owns it, people you pay like Tobin, things like that. Okay, so that's the world of cybersecurity. And in that world of cybersecurity, you have these different threat actors, right? You've got the script kiddies, the malicious insiders, the organized cybercrime, hacktivism, cyber terrorism, state-sponsored, all of that kind of thing that happens. And again, talking mostly cybersecurity here. Privacy is distinct. Online privacy is the protection of an individual's personal information and activities on the internet. It's concerned with the collection, use, and sharing of personal data by websites, apps, and other online services. So this is really more about protection of your personal information and how you use the internet. There's different things we'll talk about later on, about encryption and secure browsing and things like that. The primary goal is to really give you control over the personal information and activities so that it's not misused, but also get that you are giving people permission to use that data all the time. So it's striking that balance. That's why it's that shared responsibilities. There's still you and the different organizations out there that are that you're working with, governments, but really so much of it is up to you to protect this. And that's why I say it's the picture is there's a few bright spots, but it's pretty grim. So stay attention here. This came out. This is like a quote from, I don't know if you remember Scott McNealy's Sun Microsystems. I don't think they're not around anymore, or maybe they are in some fashion. I forgot who they got bought by. Early internet pioneer, building up the servers that ran things like Netscape and all that early internet stuff. And he said, privacy is dead. Get over it. So we've been talking about privacy for a long time. And this is one of the leaders and visionaries in the industry said, it's dead, get over it. And uh, yeah, it's of interest to a lot of people, but the idea that people really have true privacy is definitely going to be an illusion. You're going to find out. So we talk about threat actors around this, and I don't want this to be too controversial, right? Because these are legitimate businesses that people use and for good and bad, and you pay to use some of them as a business, you use them for your business, you use them personally. But when we talk about the world of privacy, these are no adversaries. I don't know what you'd call them, but they're the ones that are making the money off our data. And so, what does that really look like? First of all, they're advertising based revenue. These social media companies rely on advertising as their main source of income. We have chosen our internet to look like that. We want things to be free. We want to go to websites and go there and not have to pay or pay very minimally and make it easy to pay, by the way. It can't be a pain in the butt to pay and just be able to go. And that's just, we decided this is how most of our internet works now. So they got to make money somehow, right? Advertising is really how they do it. But in order to really do that, in order to be, it's so competitive, right? There's so many social media companies out there and so many people wanting that information about who you are and the profiles of who you are so they can target the ads directly to you. There's a lot of information they gather because the little edge might make all the difference. They follow these engagement driven designs. So they want you on the website over and over and over again, right? I have spent so many hours scrolling on social media, right? Scrolling TikTok, being on Facebook. You want to have a real fun time? Turn on your screen time or screen tracking on your phone and see how much time you spend on some of these things. For me, it was shocking. And I actually deleted TikTok after a long time ago, not because I was concerned about security of TikTok, but be concerned about the time I was wasting on it. But the idea is they want you on the platform. They're trying to keep you there so they can keep understanding what you want or what they think you want anyway, feed you more of it and feed you more ads. But there's a psychology behind that people might find harmful. For some people, it's like an addictive behavior that they're actually creating or causing you to only see things that are of interest to you, but never ever showing you an alternative side to anything or any information outside of anything. Good or bad, it's just kind of what's happening. And there's an impact out there. Lastly, what do they do with all that data beyond showing you advertising? They do anything they can with it, right? They're selling it in other partnerships. Data brokers are buying this information. And anywhere that people are sharing that information, there's always the risk that things can get out. And, again, these are free, but it's free with a cost. And for some people, it's significant. But really, it's, as Andrew Lewis said this, if you are not paying for it, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold. So when you think you're a customer of Facebook or a customer of Instagram or whatever and all that, I mean, maybe you're paying if there's a business angle to it or something like that. For sure, there is that way. But when you're doing it as a regular user, you are the product. You might get some benefit of it. I'm not saying there aren't some things to be derived from it, but you understand how Facebook is trying to make money off of you. That's what you've signed up for. And how did you sign up for that? You signed off on the terms of service. Oh, wait, I want to jump in. I want to do a poll here real quick. Let us jump in and say, I'm going to launch this poll here. What social media are you guys using? Personally, business-wise? Where are the clicks at? Out of LinkedIn. LinkedIn does the exact same thing. Facebook. I am not a big Pinterest user, but people that go on it seem to really like it for things. It's amazing. Some of these really get nichey in terms of why it appeals to people. Some ebb and flow, but look at that. So we'll close that out here. Looks like everyone's got it. Something. Let me see.
Jeremy, I was going to add in, you don't have Be Real on that, the latest thing that all the high schoolers are on.
Be Real? Okay, we're going to have to add that one in. We're going to have to add that one in. Are you guys seeing the, I don't know what that looks like. I say stop sharing. Let's see. So I say, can someone help me out? Are you guys seeing the results of the poll, or is that not? Amanda, what do you see there? I want to make sure I'm sharing the results.
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So, all right. Now I got it. Appreciate that. Trying to learn how to use the polls feature here. All right. So you got every one of these services you signed up for, and just about every service you will ever sign up for or thing you buy comes with a booklet, a contract, a term of service, an end user license agreement, all of that stuff. And this is, what are you signing up for when you are signing up for these services? You're signing up for extensive data collection. And, you know, in some ways you have, you know, what you can control about what they can collect, but a lot of times nobody really bothers to alter those. No one goes in to change those. So by default, they're going to take as much as they can. And it depends on the service, right? This is some, you know, some services, I don't know, maybe the more popular ones, the ones that are more global, like Facebook, you know, there's so much attention on them that, and their terms of service. So, you know, they're still trying to do what they do, but they might try and soften it in some ways or make it a little more, you know, as they try and talk about how they want to sort this out with their end users to have what works for everybody. But there are some services you are signing up where you are just giving them lock, stock, and barrel everything, because no one's watching those people. No one's really checking out what they're doing. So extensive data collection, not just data collection like information, like they'll see how quickly you're scrolling. If you don't click on something from the app, but you actually pause on something just to view it, they know you're pausing. The data usage and sharing. What are you allowing them to do with that information? What are you saying they can do with that? The changes that come. So those changes happen a lot for a variety of reasons. There might be new regulations. In some cases, the government is your friend on some of this stuff. They're the, you know, if anything, the only one can really force people to do with these in some of these cases is beyond the capitalistic system of voting with your wallet is the government. So they change those policies a lot because of that, but they change their policies because they got caught on something. And now suddenly there's a social media uproar about their privacy policy. But again, what do you do when those things come up? You just, I mean, I don't know how many of you really read them, really do that, right? They're long, it's legalese. It's sometimes you're looking on your phone, it's a little tiny screen. I mean, they change them a lot. What about the ownership of the content you put up there? If you post photos, things you say, what can they do with that? And lastly, how long can they keep that data? And does it really get deleted? You know, you're hearing some of these sites now where people are deleting their accounts, but it's not deleting their data. And then there's a breach later on and they find out that their data was still on the system. So these are things, just a little snippet of some of the things. So if you're really interested and you really, really want to know what you're exchanging for your free service, you want to dive into your terms of service. That's just with those social media companies. How do you get on the internet? You got your AT&T, your Verizon, your Spectrum, your T-Mobile. I'm not talking about phone service. I'm talking about your home carrier service. Guess what? They are also collecting tons and tons of information. You also have terms of service with them on what they can and can't do that you have agreed to as part of purchasing their service. That includes collection and sharing of user data. What websites do you visit? Where do you go? and they want to use it for the same kind of thing. They want to take that data, sell it, advertise for it. But they have that information. And there's an idea of surveillance and government access. If they've got the information and the government needs access to that information, they can make a request. They can, they can subpoena it, they can grab it, they can, in some cases, they're just grabbing it already. That was one of the things that came out with when that we were doing after 9/11. They just start making duplicate copies of everything that comes through the system. So you just don't know what's going through there. They can have data breaches. They're transparent about what they collect. Some of these companies are overseas. I mean, there's a lot of things. And then the ad targeting, same thing. A lot of this boils down to the ads. I mean, that's their easiest low-hanging fruit of way of trying to get money from additional money from you using the service. But they're collecting this as well. So things like VPNs can obscure some of this information, but they also, in terms of protecting your privacy, they're the link to the freeway here. Search engines. Oh, our internet friends, the search engines, right? Where would we be without Google and even Bing in some cases, especially Bing with its new AI features? Again, Google, free search, not free, right? They do data collection. They want to know your search queries, where it's coming from. But guess what? As business owners, we want this, right? Oh, they're searching for us. So now we start to kind of dance that line, right? When this is our personal, hey, don't track me. But when someone's searching for my business, yeah, track me, because I want to know who you are so I can get you on my email list and retarget you for my ad campaign through my CRM, through my marketing system. So it's two sides of the same hand here. Which perspective are we looking at? Really, for today, we're focusing more on the personal side, but you want to get the drive on the business side to do this, and even from your own drive. Tracking. So, they can track you from site to site. They know they have data breaches. The same thing, government surveillance. You hear about some of the people that get arrested, found out, people that commit big crimes, whatever, on the news, and it's like they got their search history. Well, how do they find it? In some cases, they can subpoena and get it from Google and Bing. It's a lack of transparency what they do. Google has what they call their black box of how they even score which websites go to the top when you search. So anyway, there's a lot of concern around that, right? Because again, that's another piece of where you are out in the world every day, all day long, that's tracking you. Cookies, not the good kind, not the Girl Scout cookies, not the yummy cookies, the holiday cookies that come in the same flavor but the different shape, the pumpkin and the thing. Anyway, I love cookies. These cookies are infuriating. I think we all can agree. Some of this comes from government regulation. The general data protection rules regulations in Europe required some of these things, and other regulations are requiring them as well, because as you're going to find out, cookies are how they track us. That's one way, and the main way. And so you get these just bewildering, complex things that pop up. Some cases, okay, we're using cookies. Got it? Some cases you get choices. You can accept, decline. Some cases you decline and then the website doesn't work right. I mean, what do? You just want to get to your website. Show me my information. I don't want to have to think about this stuff. And then some of these are just so, I'm assuming intentionally complex and kind of obtuse, but in some cases, maybe they're really trying to give you granular control so you can just get exactly, I'm going to give you just the information I want to give you, but not more. I mean, it's a nightmare. So what is a cookie? It's a small piece of information that's stored on your computer or your device by websites you visit. It helps websites remember things about your visit, like your preferences or items in your shopping cart. And for marketers and social media companies, cookies provide personalized advertising, retargeting strategies, and user analytics and insights. So you go to your favorite website, you're okay, summer's coming, and you need a new canoe. So you go to your favorite canoe store, you go to rei.com or something like that. REI is like, great, welcome. Oh, you're looking for canoes. Here's your account. They drop a cookie on your system that knows you went there, that you were searching on canoes. And then suddenly you go to a completely different website and there's REI telling you about canoes sales and information about canoes. A lot of that happens through cookies, right? That is how they know. They know that you went there to that other website. It's really complex how it all works in the background, but fundamentally, when they're on your system now, is this a security issue? I don't know. I like my website to be easy and friendly and to remember what I was doing. And maybe it's not a bad thing that it reminds me on a different website that I was searching for something else. But I don't know. It's how are they using this information? Who else knows about that I'm looking at canoes? What are they doing with that information? Is someone else grabbing that? Is that being resold to other marketers? And and suddenly I'm getting all kinds of canoe ads from all kinds of places, and then who knows what, right? So, and it seems to work that way. So this is one way they track you. And so you can clear your cookies, but then you know what happens when you clear your cookies, you go back to the website and then you got to relog in and it doesn't remember. And it's so anyway, so cookies are kind of a necessary evil on the website. They make the websites easier to use, but they come with a cost. Digital fingerprinting is interesting. When you go to a website, so you open up your web browser, your favorite web browser, doesn't make a difference which one, and you open up and you go to a web page, your favorite web page, whatever that is, like, okay, going to go to rei.com or something like that. I must have camping on the mind for this webinar. You go to rei.com. Now you can go in and create an account and log in and all that kind of thing. Not a problem if you want. But let's say you just want to browse and you don't want to create an account, right? You just want to go through the website and you want to look and you don't want to send it, you don't want them to know who you are necessarily. Maybe it's a website that has something sketchy on it. I don't know, whatever it is. You just don't want to get more marketing and advertising, right? Because as soon as we know we give them an account, we start getting more advertising and newsletters and all that kind of thing, right? So maybe we want to avoid that. When you go to that website, there's some things that happen in the background. So you type in rei.com in your web browser and then the web page comes up. When you typed in rei.com, not only did you tell your browser to go out to rei.com and go fetch that information from their web page, you sent the server that delivered that web page, rei.com's web server, you sent it a bunch of information. Not just that, you want this website and here's your IP address so it can send it back to you. You told it what kind of browser you're using. You told it which version of the browser you're using. You told it what fonts are installed on your computer. You told it what screen size you have. You may have told it what plugins are enabled in your browser. There is a bunch of information that can get gotten without you giving any consent or having to set up with an account. And all of those little bits of information, and it can be extensive, unless you disable it, which we'll talk about later, can build a profile. And guess what? You're kind of unique in what browser you use and what fonts you have installed and what screen size you're running and all of that kind of stuff, such that even if they didn't give you information, I think I've seen studies where it's close to 90% in some cases that they can fingerprint you. Meaning they don't know maybe not what your name is, they don't maybe not know where you live, but they know who you are and they can still use that to track you around the internet. So you're going to find out some web browsers. There's privacy-focused browsers, and they're starting to add more features to to other browsers, the regular browsers most people use. But if you're interested in seeing what it does for your browser, you can go to that coverourtracks.eff.org. Coveryourtracks.eff.org. Don't get lost there right now. It'll be a rabbit's hole during this webinar for you, because the information there you'll be finding out is very interesting. And even they'll give us some mitigation tips on that too. So that's a whole other world where you're getting tracked. The dark web. This is an aspect of the internet that you can't typically just Google to go find. It's not typically searchable by the web. You got to know a guy kind of thing. It's where the criminal behavior, the unethical behavior, where the hackers sell their services, when the websites are breached and the password databases and the personal information databases, your name, phone number, email address, maybe your password, other information about you is breached. Where does it show up? Once they get ready to sell it, on the dark web. So, and there are things you are all almost certainly on the dark web in some way with one of your email addresses, caught up in something. That may not be a big deal, but it's kind of weird. Like I'm like, I didn't sign up for that service. Oh, it's some marketing company. Somehow, right? They got my email, they got my name, just like we all buy these things, right? Yeah, and flip side, as a business owner, give me more names. I want people in my target market. I want people that have this kind of revenue and this kind of size employees and this kind of persona, shopping persona. Like those kinds of things you want as a business owner. On the flip side, again, how are we trying to protect ourselves? So this stuff gets out there. You can't really get it back unless you are the person who knows a guy, maybe. But you're going to find out those services that say they can really can't. And but you just want to look and be what's out there. The main thing is, if you see your name out there, if there's a password breach or something like that, make sure you're not reusing that password. But again, your information is going to live out there forever on the dark web with this. So that's another place. When your information's breached in some way, this is one place it shows up where people are using it. This is where people might go, the scammers, people calling you, trying to sell you this or this and that. They're getting your information in some cases from here. People using browser incognito mode. I think most of you know this now. It is a feature of your web browser where you can say, I'm on this page, but I'm going to now browse again, but I'm going to turn on incognito or privacy mode, and it brings up a screen, and it usually says, hey, look, none of your stuff here is going to be, it kind of gives you an idea of what's happening. There's kind of a misunderstanding about this. People think this means really security, like I'm not going to be able to be tracked with that. It's really more about local privacy. It's more about what's stored on your device. Because, right, cookies get stored on your device. Your web history is stored on your device. The caching of what web pages you went to is stored on your device, your PC, your phone, your tablet. It's more about local privacy. It does not provide complete anonymity or full protection from third-party tracking. If it uses a cookie during that time while you're in that incognito window, it'll use the cookie. And if you go to multiple websites, it'll use that cookie just like it uses a regular cookie. The difference is when you close the privacy tab, those cookies disappear. And anybody who will look at your phone would not know what you're doing. So it protects your identity that way, but it's not about an anonymity online. It doesn't necessarily block those trackers. And it certainly doesn't protect you from malware by itself. So we want to make sure you guys understand that does not, what that does and what that doesn't do. So if you're trying to hide something from your significant other, put yourself or your, privacy mode. That's what that's really for. Let's see. Social engineering is still a big way people are taking your information, right? This is another way your online identity and your privacy gets breached. You give it to them. Sad but true. Someone calls you up, someone gets your information somehow off any common marketing website or just Googling or the dark web. They get a big list, whatever. And then this is where you start getting the phone calls. Hey, we all get these, right? Someone you know is, some of them are scary. Like someone you know they're saying is trapped somewhere like in another country and needs money. Some of it's the Nigerian prince thing. Some of it's the buy gift cards for the group. There's a lot of things where this shows up, but it's all a con game. And when you fall for this, they're taking online information on you that they do have to make their story sound better and more real. Right? This is why, how many of you have, you get that Facebook request from somebody and you're like, I thought I was already friends with that person, but it looks like their account, it's got their picture. How did they do that? Well, they were able to set up an account because someone made their picture public. They're able to just go create an account because Facebook lets anyone create an account, take that picture, they don't care. And then they send it to you. Con game, taking stuff off publicly available off the web. And they use it for phishing. Again, this starts to border on that cybersecurity piece, but some of it gets into your online protection, right? Especially when we're not talking about your business, but when you're talking about your grandparent or you or your kid or your friend who got hit with this. So, they target individuals just like they target businesses. It's just as easy, just as cost-free for them to do it, and often just as lucrative. So you still want to be watching out for those emails. Print this off, put it next to your computer. It's just a great place to remember, if anything, to keep your mind top of mind, watching out for those emails, because there are still a lot of email compromises out there that compromise your accounts, compromise your online information. This is another thing. Sometimes we're just tossing these things in the garbage, which, in an environmental world, by the way, this is a real disaster. I don't want to drink your old computer someday, but beyond that part of it, people are leaving information on these computers and routers and fax machines that had little hard drives in them and digital cameras and all of that kind of thing. So if you can't reuse or recycle it or resell it, you got to make sure you're wiping it. People are dumpster diving for these things. It's not as common, but it happens. And you don't want to be the one that's breached. Sometimes it's your business doing this. And now you've just given yourself a problem where you've given out a lot of information on your clients. So you can map this onto the business world as well. This is another place where some of the stuff gets breached. Or the other thing, people return stuff. Oh, I got to add that to this. You are hearing stories of people buying devices that were return items on Amazon or Best Buy, and they were still configured. I think that was happening with baby monitors I saw in the news. So if you're going to return something, make sure you really clear it and get rid of your information off of that. Oh, I got to add that in as a slide. Okay. Let's see where we're at here. Guys on the edge of your seat? So identity theft. This is, the scary part, right? This is when it becomes not just an irritation of, hey, why are you selling my information? You violated my privacy. This is, you got my information and now you're pretending to be me. You're damaging credit score. You're opening up accounts in my name. You're having your credit score is going down. I mean, it's tremendously damaging, tremendously time consuming. Watch out for it. You just got to kind of watch your stuff. And this is the thing. You used to get your bank statement and open it up and read it. Things like that. People don't do that as much anymore. There's so many services you're signed up for now. It's just hard. You used to have just a couple things to look at. One credit card, one bank account. Now there's so many different services and 401k accounts and all these different things. It's a lot to look at, but you got to look for it. So, let's do, we're going to get into some ways we're going to be able to deal with some of this stuff here soon. So other blind spots, smart TVs. When you set up the smart TV and you connect to the internet, what is one of the first things it does? Do you accept these terms of service? Yes, your smart TV is also tracking you for all the same reasons. Now, I don't know if it's like looking at you, maybe if it's got a camera, it is, but it knows what apps you run on there. It knows what you do. It knows your viewing time. And I have no idea what those different, depending on the TV and what they want to gather. The smart speakers, right? All of that kind of stuff's gathering information. Public Wi-Fi can gather information, your website, multifunction printers are gathering information. I added this last one, the artificial intelligence piece. This is a whole other aspect to it. This has been going on for a while, but it's really in the forefront now. I mean, Bing just added components of ChatGPT, because you know Microsoft's a big investor in OpenAI, to their website. So now we have the whole idea of artificial intelligence and what that's going to do with our personal information. New Wild West. Yes, I agree, Karen. We do need to wipe work printers and scanners. People were dumpster diving and they found there was one story of a all-in-one, I think, and it had a little hard drive in it that kept copies of all the faxes. It was from a police department. So we're going to jump into some ways you can start to mitigate some of this, but let me launch this poll here. What are you doing now? Oh, is the poll coming up?
The poll went away.
Poll went away. What am I doing here? I got to get better at this. Sorry about that. How about that? Do you see the poll there? There we go. Okay. All right. Look at that. A lot of good practices. A lot of people doing some things. This would not have looked this way a few years ago, even though the same issues existed. This must be a real testament to people being more interested in security here. All right. So a lot of good stuff happening in there. Good stuff, good passwords, watching out for phishing. Everybody's doing that. That's really good. But it's amazing what still gets through, isn't it, with phishing? Even with the best technologies, the stuff gets through that is just ridiculous. You think, how maybe AI will fix that, at least have be better understanding of what are the bad emails. Deleting the unused apps, that's a good one. Updating software is really important. Good. Okay, there's good stuff in there. We're going to talk about some of those technologies here. And that's our last poll. So I think I got that right. Okay. And let's talk about some of the things you can do about it. So your web browser, your Chrome, your Firefox, your Safari, your Microsoft Edge, especially the new Microsoft Edge, they are all adding more and more features to add more privacy and security and things like that. For Microsoft and Chrome, you know, they got a business behind it too. So while they are trying to put these in, and Microsoft, you know, still wants to make money through advertising, that's not their primary business model. So they're giving you some of these features. Some of this is maybe my opinion too. They're giving you some of these features and touting theirs in some ways is more secure. Google has their browser. They are very interested in their main source of revenue is advertising. You know, what are they going to reduce from their web browser to have it be more secure? And then there's also special purpose browsers that are showing up. There's a browser called Brave, which is kind of another version of Chrome, but specific with additional security focus. There's something called the Tor browser. So I'm not getting into too deep about how you get those and all of that, but what they're really trying to do is the key features is they're trying to put in technologies that mitigate you being tracked from site to site. They're trying to block ads, which, you know, can also protect you as well as maybe speed up your system. They all have those private browsing modes, but they're also trying to add more fingerprinting protection in. So ways of stopping some of that information from going through. And lastly, some of them are open source code, meaning that the programming language they were developing in and the code used to write those programs is available on the internet for anybody to look at and view. And that can be really handy for security researchers and people like that who can look and evaluate if they can find security holes in some of these browsers where it's not doing its job, versus a closed source one like Edge, although some of that's built on Chrome now, so that's a little more open source. I don't know. You kind of get back and forth on it, but the bottom line is none of these are going to guarantee your privacy. They're really not. It kind of depends what you're trying to do, but part of it is the internet becomes almost unusable when you turn some of these things off. Some of the websites you like to go to just don't work well. So you still got to practice good habits and don't count on this as, oh, I use a browser, so I am secure. You might be more secure, you might be more privacy focused, but not 100%. Identity theft protection services. So I don't personally use one of these at this point in my life. I just looked at what Consumer Report says. They're generally considered a pretty reliable resource on this. And they just had these 5 points. Can it monitor your identity out on the internet? Yes, up to a point. Can it tell you where your information is on the dark web? For sure. And there's lots of other services that do that. Can it remove information from the dark web? No. Can it prevent the theft of your identity? No. Can it help you restore your identity? It depends. So they say they're going to help you go through and work with your different accounts. If you actually get hacked and your identity stolen, it's a time sink is my understanding, beyond the nightmare of having accounts closed and credit and money stolen. I mean, that's awful and all of that. But there's a whole time component to it. We hear people spending hours and weeks and months of their lives trying to reclaim and reconstruct their online life and their financial life. And they claim to help with some of that in terms of time and resources. So, but you know what? LifeLock, ironically, was hacked. Their website was the victim of what's called a credential stuffing attack. Basically, their website allowed people to try password after password after password and was able to get in, and they had to let like almost 1 million accounts know that they might have been breached. So sometimes if you're one of the, we've had a couple of customers that had a compromise now and again, and they have to do a notification. And sometimes they have to buy like a service like this for their clients, or for their, they have to buy a service like this for their employees because maybe some of the information got breached. So it's kind of, I don't know who LifeLock would use for that service for their employees that might have gotten breached. But so anyway, these again, can they help a little bit? If they can monitor your identity, that might be useful. The sooner you know about it, it might be worth it. Because like I said, there's so many places, so many different accounts you have these days to track it all and watch for every alert and every email that comes through, and all that is daunting. That's why I said the picture is not rosy around this stuff, because our lives are so much more complex. Sometimes just preventing your account from outright being stolen would be having multi-factor authentication turned on. We harp on this. This is the easiest stuff. And you want to protect your internet registrar. So if you're somebody that maintains a domain, like we have tobinsolutions.com, and we use a registrar who we pay to ensure that no one else can register that domain. But guess what? The internet registrar has an account, and we log in to manage that. So there's two-factor. You want to turn that on. Obviously, your email, your cloud, your banking, your workstations, your remote desktops, your VPN, your mobile phone carrier, right? Sometimes that is your extra factor. So you want to protect that as well. Go in and turn that on. This is sometimes it's just being from outright being stolen. You got to turn that on. Password managers. Talked about this before. If you've been to any of our security webinars, don't reuse passwords. Use a good password managers. Yes, one of the big password managers was hacked, so there is some concern around that. But by and large, you know, they're still recommended. We use one called Bitwarden, which we think is really good. It's open source, which is nice, and has an enterprise version and a family version. Also, do yourself a favor. It's not just protecting your online identity while you're alive. It's helping people with your online identity when you are dead. Make sure your family has your passwords should you die. And one of the nice features these password managers have is an emergency mode. So I have it turned on that after a certain number of hours, let's say if I'm dead or in a coma, my emergency contacts, like my wife, can request access to my password manager. And I'll get an email. And if I don't respond to that email within a certain amount of time, she'll get access to the accounts. So do yourself a favor with that kind of thing, because it's not just protecting your online identity now, it's protecting it and making it available as it's actually needed in the afterlife. And that's the balance we're struggling, right? We're trying to have it, protecting it, but we need it. How do we walk that tightrope? We're talking about mobility. This is a whole other part of being in the online world. It's one thing to be at your home where you know you've got things set up and safe, maybe, hopefully, or at work. But we go out everywhere, right? We're somewhere where, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password here? My data plan's not working well, or I'm running out of data, or my data plan's slow, or whatever it is. You want to get on the Wi-Fi, or you need to print or do something somewhere. So what can you do about that? Are you safe when you do that? Well, it depends, right? There are some, you know, people that set up rogue Wi-Fi hotspots. There's nothing that prevents somebody to go take a device and go hang out at the airport and call it, you know, Mitchell Airport Wi-Fi, and someone will try and connect to it. So that part's a challenge. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about using the ones that are there. First of all, you obviously want to encrypt anything. So you want to make sure, and that's used to be more of a option. Most applications these days have built-in encryption, by and large. Not everything, so you want to check if it's important, but your web browsers on your phone, all the websites you go to, a lot of them are using encryption by default. The apps you use like Facebook and Instagram and your email, most of those are encrypted. So that's pretty much by default, but you still want to check into that. You may want to use a VPN. Again, it doesn't protect your online identity, but it could protect you from whoever is Wi-Fi you're using, or it could be protecting you from your carrier snooping on what you're doing. And there's a couple of them like ExpressVPN, and Google One has one that looks pretty easy. Most of these are just trying to use the one that are built into the phone and get that set up. Making sure your firewall's running. This is a biggie. If you ever go to a website and it says, in order to use this website, you must install this certificate, or you go to Wi-Fi and it says, in order to use this Wi-Fi, you must install a certificate. Don't do that. That certificate is the thing that will allow them to decrypt all your information. You should almost never have to do that, ever. And I would not use the computers at the hotel business center. I would, you know, most people have a laptop or a tablet or can do things from their phone. I would definitely not use those just because you don't manage them, maintain them, or know anything about them. Let's talk a little more about VPNs. This gets a little geeky, and again, it's another dense slide, but people ask about this and wonder what it can really do for you. So a VPN, a virtual private network, it creates a secure encrypted connection between your device and the internet, and it ensures that your online activities remain private and protected from prying eyes. Now, prying eyes means, again, between you and the website you're going to, or the service you're using, and everything in between. So that would be the Wi-Fi at the hotel, or your internet carrier, or your home internet provider. A VPN would protect some of that. Or if somehow someone was watching what you were doing, a VPN would protect some of that. But it doesn't protect if I use a VPN to connect somewhere and I launch Facebook, Facebook still knows it's me. It doesn't protect that online privacy the way you think it does. However, it could protect your online if you're trying to hide from the fact that you are using a VPN. So there's some features you want in a VPN, like a no logs policy. Some of these VPN services people use, they keep logs of who's using the service, and some of those logs have been exposed. These security companies are not immune from having security breaches. So if you really need it, great, but it doesn't necessarily protect your online account. If you start browsing the web like you normally do from a VPN, it's still going to track you the same way. Now, it may think you're coming from a different IP address. It might be wondering, why is Jeremy launching Facebook from London right now? Because some people use VPNs to do that, to watch and shows and violate the terms of service from their account to watch a show in a different country because it's not allowed in the US or vice versa. So people use VPNs to violate terms of service for some of the products and services they use. So not judging, but that, in reality, that's what's happening. So again, can it protect you? Is it useful? Yeah. If I was a dissident or a journalist or something, I would absolutely be using a VPN. By and large, for most of what we do from your device, for most of the services, other than like work things, rarely. There's some other resources you can use besides this Tobin webinar today. And these are good resources. And then some of this is, a result of our government, some nice use of our tax dollars. So take advantage of it. Identitytheft.gov. There's some good proactive information in there. And there's what to do if you think you've been hit. Walks you through the steps, about as easy peasy as anyone can be around dealing with something as awful as what happens there. So keep that involved, available for yourself. And then there's the annualcreditreport.com. That's the actual free one. There's other ones that claim to be free and this and that. That's the actual one. You are, by law, so this was a nice thing in the law that they did. They said you must, these companies that track your credit reports, because sometimes that's the breach. By the way, did any of you guys get caught up in the Equifax breach? 600 million, 60 million? It's an enormous amount of customer information. Their customers, you, was released. So they have, you can go there and get your credit report. You can freeze your report, freeze your credit reporting and things like that if you're not going and actively doing loans and things. So there's some things you want to do around that, because sometimes that's part of the identity theft, right? It's the, look, again, if you're not clear, the picture is grim. It is not easy to really, truly remain anonymous unless you unplug and go move to the woods. But even then, whatever you've been doing today is still going to be used. I mean, there's people that are dead that still have Facebook profiles. So, yeah. So you want to try and get ahead of this. And one of the ways is if you do get breached, maybe having a proactive freeze on your credit reporting would stop them from doing that damage. Check your homeowner's insurance policy, your renter's policy, see what you've got there. A lot of times they're giving you some resources and coverage. What kind of coverage do you have for theft, identity theft? Because like I said, it's costly. You do have some control. It's a pain in the butt, but you do have some control with any app you use on your phone or device or computer, with any website you go to. Click under your account, go to settings, click on the gear, wherever it is. You have to research exactly where to go and look for the privacy and security settings. And if you're not clear, just use Google, and Google will track you while you say, Google Chrome privacy and security settings, and it'll take you to a page where it explains what those are and what they do. See what information you have. If you're thinking about an app you have, Instagram app on iOS, just Google Instagram iOS app privacy and security settings. And then you'll get something where it'll tell you what you can and can't do. Or even how your information is shared among the people in your group. right? Some people have their Facebook profiles, everything they post is public, even outside their friend circles. And if that's the way they want it, then great. But I don't know that they do. So, and the default sometimes isn't the way you'd want it either. It's not always less restrictive, or it's often less restrictive, not more restrictive, because they want to get more eyeballs on your stuff so they can sell more ads. And then look for changing the default. That's changing that default settings for sharing permission and data usage, right? Some of these systems have a nice feature, like in Facebook, for example, you can go in and you can say, show me what my profile looks like from a public perspective. Meaning if someone is not logged in and not a friend of yours or a friend of a friend, same thing, you can see what does it look like from a public perspective. You can actually see what's being exposed. So you have some control over that, but it takes time and it's not easy. And sometimes it breaks stuff and things you liked and used don't work the way you got to use. And then you got to make a choice of whether you add more security or make your life easier in the now. Parental controls, whole other thing. Oh my God, they are next to useless in many cases. You know, kids are getting devices earlier and earlier, and not even get into the whole world of how bad this is for our brains and for the future of our society and our kids. I mean, there's study after study showing it is bad, and they're just beginning to understand what's really there. I'm not trying to preach, you know, talk to people you care, whose advice you care about what this might be doing to our kids' brains and the stress and the social and all that. And there's a few things you can do, but you got to be rigorous with it. And there's so many easy ways to get around it. And there's websites the kids can go to Google how to get around these things. And then there's just being on the bus with their friend whose parent is not doing these things, and they're watching all the videos and doing all the things. And so it's tough. And if you haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, I recommend that. That is eye-opening for people that may want to have their eyes open a little more on really what the damage is here. If anything, it might get you a little more action around it. I don't know. It's a scary world we're doing with this in terms of the human race, and I don't know where it's all going, but anyway, let's see if we can do anything about the kids and try and delay the pain on them a little more. Maybe it'll pay it forward for us. Okay. What else we got? Other things you can do to protect your privacy. Just some other things here. We're kind of wrapping this up. There's no guarantee on any of this stuff. There really aren't. Even if you think you're doing everything right and the company you're doing is everything right, they get breached. They have a cybersecurity incident, and now your data's out there on the dark web, and it's just out there. And remember, you are giving it away as well. We talk about the hackers, but almost everything that you're concerned about here today is something you've said yes to give away for free. It's something you've already agreed to. You may not like it. They may misuse it, and then you've got a case to be made that way. But by and large, you're giving it to them. So you want to know what they're doing as best you can, but it's hard. No one has time. Oh my God, you're sitting in line at you're going somewhere and someone's like, oh, you got to install this app real quick to go do this thing. You're at a movie theater. I don't know, whatever it is, install this app. You're going to an auction, a charity auction, install this app, whatever these things are. Terms of service pops up. You're not going to sit there and read it. It's boring. At least for me. So, but you want to at least understand that's the only thing you can really do, especially if you want to try and make a difference in the world with this, like going in and getting involved as a citizen, what you can do to lobby the government, lobby these companies to be better around this stuff. So we got some other things we talked about, good passwords, opting out of subscription lists, some of these things, but again, it's not going to stop it. I don't have a hallelujah moment. Normally it's kind of like a hallelujah. Like I said, this is a bit grim here. But hopefully you got a little more information, a little more ideas on some things you can do, some places you can start. If you think this conversation will be valuable elsewhere in your organization, or if you're on the board, or you want this at your church or synagogue or nonprofit you sit on or anything like that, and be useful, or, I don't know, a school, I don't know. there's good stuff here we could talk about. Happy to come in and do that. This is, again, I'd rather have you know the state of things than not know. With information and action comes power. And so hopefully you got a few action tips you can come out of here and start to make yourself a little safer. Thank you very much. There will be a survey coming out. I'll stick around for another couple minutes here because I know I ran a little bit long. If you've got questions for that, otherwise you will be getting a survey about what you think about today. Thank you for being here. Be safe online, be safe in the world, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Take care. You're welcome. Oh, we got a few questions in here. Karen's got some good questions. Let's see. Yeah, challenges the different technology on things. The different VPNs conflicting, that's the other thing. They use different services, they use different ways they deal with, and they can cause conflicts with one another. And there may be some settings and ways you can fix that to deal with it, to actually deal with the conflict, but it's just more complex and more time.